Hey, good morning, everyone. Thanks for hanging with us. We got an awesome team down here. Just last minute, internet just dropped, went away. We don't know where it went, but it came back, and here we are. So thank you for sticking with us. I think it was worth it. Those two openers that the band pulled off, absolutely amazing. Love it. Everyone's just doing such a great job. Hey, if we haven't had a chance to meet yet, my name is Garry. I'm one of the pastors here. And we are really glad that you have chosen to spend some of your day with us today. And a big shout out to all the moms out there. You guys are absolutely amazing. I know I have the best mom in the world, so happy Mother's Day to you, Mom. And of course, my wife was the best mom too. So, and if you want to take me up on that, I'll meet you in the chat after the message. But thank you for tuning in. Our vision here at the meeting place is to be a church that is known for unleashing God's extravagant love in this city and around the world. One of the ways we do that is by coming alongside and partnering with organizations that are already doing great work that kind of align with our values. And one of those organizations that is local is Crossroads Pregnancy Center. Located right here in Nanaimo, they do awesome work. They exist to provide non-judgmental, practical help and education to those in a crisis pregnancy or a post-abortion situation. And they do that with peer counseling, emotional, practical, and spiritual help. The work they do is absolutely amazing. And they're able to do this largely by the generosity of people like you who donate to help them, kind of meet their financial needs. And one of their largest fundraisers of the year kicks off today, Mother's Day. It's called Operation Baby Bottle. We've been part of it for years now. Obviously, with the pandemic going on, we can't hand out baby bottles like we normally do that you would take home, and over the next month you'd fill with change and cash and checks and then bring it back on Father's Day. But here's the thing. You guys never cease to amaze me. Through your generosity and the way you've been giving, we are in a position where we can support them just directly and just say, you know what? We love what you guys are doing. We want to support you in that. So we can do that. But here's the thing. If you still want to partake in this initiative that they have, Operation Baby Bottle, you can do that by going to their website. It's on the screen. I would encourage you to do so, because not only can you do that, you can find out how you can help and partner with them. They have all kinds of ways that you can get involved, whether that's just praying for the moms and the dads and all the stuff that's going on, to folding clothes, donating clothes to them, all kinds of stuff. So on behalf of the staff, the volunteers, and the clients of Crossroads Pregnancy Center, I just want to say thank you. Now, you have no doubt heard or seen things like this: lift with your legs and not your back, or wear your seatbelt. How about this one? Leave the phone alone, especially while driving. Those words of advice, they're good for us, right? They keep us safe. Because if you lift with your legs, you're not going to injure your back. I remember when I was young and somebody would say, hey, you shouldn't be lifting with your back. I was like, no. Now, I tend to lift with my legs, right? Because I'm going to get injured. If you choose not to wear your seatbelt, well, you're just opening yourself up to the possibility of serious injury or worse if you get in a car crash. Same with texting and driving. We all have seen the consequences of that. Those are all great words of advice. Great things to live by. But if we don't actually put those things into play, they just remain that, words. That's all they are. And they don't do us any good. We see this play out when we go to the doctor quite often. Maybe for you, let's just play a scenario out here. You haven't been to the doctor in years, and so you call and you make an appointment, and you go in, and the doctor does all the tests, and then sits you down in their office, and they say to you, based on your age and your height and your weight, it wouldn't hurt you to lose a couple of pounds. okay? You got some COVID pounds happening here. Your blood sugar levels, a little bit higher than we'd like to see it, so maybe instead of snacking on cupcakes, maybe snack on a carrot. Instead of taking the elevator at work, take the stairs. Like, get out, get some exercise. 30 minutes a day, 3 days a week would do you well. And here's the thing. We know and believe that to be true. We think, yeah, that would I know I could lose some pounds, and yeah, I eat too many sweets, that kind of thing. But here's what often happens. We leave the doctor's office, we hop in our car, we drive to the nearest Tim Hortons where we grab a maple cream donut and a double-double, and we sit down to think about it because we just don't want to make a rash decision, right? And you hear it like that and you think, well, that sounds like really dumb. But think about it. Here's a doctor, an expert in human anatomy that knows how the body works best. And we have to sit down and think about whether the advice they're giving us is going to be good for us or not. It kind of raises the question, like, what is that about? Why do we do that? Well, let me throw this out there for you to consider. I kind of rolling this question around a little bit this week. Could it be that often what is required of us in that advice, we just deem too difficult? It's just too inconvenient. It's too much work to do. And so we tend to just blow off that advice. Just carry on with the status quo. Just do what we've always been doing. And it's not like I'm immune to this stuff. Get this. When I was employed as a commercial diver, I had to go for a physical every year. And it was quite intense physical. And every year the doctor would say the same thing. He'd go, yeah, you're doing pretty good. Your blood pressure's, kind of a little on the high side, not too bad, but dude, you gotta quit smoking. And here's the thing. I know about all the dangers of smoking. I believe what science has to, says about smoking and the dangers it poses to my health were true. Like, I didn't dispute them ever, didn't doubt them. But here's what I would do. I would leave the doctor's office nodding in agreement, hop in my truck and light up a smoke. It sounds crazy, doesn't it? But here's the thing, and I think you'll agree. It seems that hearing advice, good advice, and not doing it is something we humans are really good at. In the first book of the New Testament, named after the guy that wrote it, a guy named Matthew, there's an account of Jesus' first sermon, his first talk, public talk. We referenced it a couple of weeks ago. We reference it all the time. It's called the Sermon on the Mount because it happened on this side of a mountain. Pretty inventive, I know. But in this talk, though, it is chock full of all kinds of practical advice on how to live life better. If you haven't already, I would encourage you to read it. Go to the first book of the New Testament, Matthew. Go to chapter 5, chapters 5 through 7. It's incredible. I mean, who wouldn't like to learn how to do this better? To learn how to live in a relationship with one another better? How to learn about money and marriage and stress and forgiveness and anger and bitterness and revenge? And how to navigate all that stuff in a healthy way? Now, Jesus is a smart guy. One of the things that we hold to here is that Jesus was God in the flesh. That's the Christmas story, right? It's kind of the key element of what we believe around here. And if that's true, then that means he created us, which also would mean that if he created us, he knows how we work best, what's best for us. And he also knows our propensity to disregard good advice, to kind of push it off to the side and say, sounds good, not for me. And so what Jesus does is at the end of this talk, he tells a story to the people that were listening then and to us today to show us how important it is for us to listen and actually engage with the stuff he taught. And Jesus does this using a literary device called a parable. Parable is it's almost like a metaphor. Jesus would take something that was very common to people, whether it's fishing or farming, And he would use an example from that to explain a deeper spiritual truth. And he'd go, oh, that's what it's like. Oh, I get what you're talking about. In one of his most famous parables ever, he uses parenting. He talks about the prodigal son, where Jesus told the story of a wayward son who wanted to just go out and live his own life his own way. And so he asks his dad for his inheritance, and he goes off and he just goes wild until he's finds himself flat broke. And now he's got to make a decision to go back home or just live on the streets and kind of eke out survive somehow. And he finally decides to go back home, and he thinks his dad's just going to reject him. But instead, his dad runs out and gives him this massive hug and welcomes him back. And Jesus used that story to illustrate God's mercy and grace and forgiveness that's available to all of us, no matter what we've done or haven't done. Well, in this instance, at the end of this talk, Jesus uses construction as a story, as a metaphor. And here's how Jesus said it. At the end of this talk, he's standing there, everyone's listening, and he's taught all this great stuff, and he says, everyone then who hears these words of mine and does them will be like a wise man who built his house on the rock. I mean, put another way, Jesus is saying, look, if you just heard all this stuff I taught about how to love your enemies, all that type of stuff, if you actually believe that to be true and take that and actually put it into practice, live this stuff out, you're going to be just like the guy that built his house on a rock, and you are going to experience the benefits, the same results that he experienced. Then you might go, well, what is that? Well, Jesus said, the rain fell and the floods came and the winds blew and beat on that house, but it did not fall because it had been founded on the rock. I love that verse. And here's why. It blows up that teaching that wrongly suggests that, you get God and life is good. That, if you get God, everything's going to be rosy. There's not going to be any more issues, no more problems, no more trouble, no more storms. Everything's just going to be like tiptoe through the tulips. And you know what? That would be awesome if that was true. But it's not. Just because you have a relationship with God doesn't mean you're going to all the storms of life are going to just kind of magically go around you. They're still going to come. In fact, Jesus comes right out and clearly and actually rather bluntly says as much. One night, Jesus, he gathered his closest followers and he said to them, he said, look, this is what's going to happen here in the very near future. I'm going to be betrayed, arrested, beaten, and crucified. And it's not going to go well for you guys either. And then he said, as this stuff is going, here, I don't want you to forget this. Listen to this. Make sure you hang on to this. And he said, I have told you all this stuff so that in me you may have peace. And then he adds this, in this world you will have troubles, storms, issues, problems. Notice Jesus didn't say, hey, guys, come here. Like all this stuff's going to happen. There's a chance that some crappy stuff might happen or could happen or might happen. No, he says it will happen. And even if you hang on to everything I have taught you, even if you live it out, you are going to be rocked with storms in your life. But you're going to be okay because you built your house on a rock. We know that to be true. We all have storm stories, don't we? And if we don't, it's just a matter of time, or we know somebody that has been through a storm or is in a storm. I mean, if you think about it, we're kind of in a collective storm right now, have been for the last 14 months. And so the question that comes up for me is, well, why then? Why bother applying all this stuff that Jesus teaches if the storms are going to come anyway? Seems kind of pointless, doesn't it? Well, one, as Jesus pointed out, is that when storms come, if we have a good foundation, we're going to make it through those storms. But here's another one that I think happens, and again, I'm just going to throw this out there for you to consider. But I think that when we put into practice the things that Jesus taught, like love your enemies, turn the other cheek, walk the extra mile, I think that is when we apply those things, live them out, that is when God can show up in amazing ways. It's not in me to want to forgive people. To forgive people that have hurt me or betrayed me or someone I love. I mean, honestly, I'd rather see them pay. I'd rather be in on that. Make them pay. Even the score. Maybe even get a little bit more of a pound of flesh, right? But here's the thing. If I'm willing to take the chance and say, okay, God, I'm going to give up this desire that I want to get even, and I'm going to trust that you're going to take care of all this stuff later, and I'm going to step out, and I'm going to do what you've asked me to do. I'm going to forgive them. As much as I don't want to, I'm going to trust you, and I'm going to forgive them. That when we do that, God shows up. There was a story in the news a few years ago about a young man named Brant Jean. Mr. Jean had the opportunity to confront a policewoman by the name of Amber Geiger. She was a policewoman in Dallas, Texas, and she had shot and killed Brant's older brother, a man named Botham, as he ate ice cream sitting on his couch. You see, Amber Geiger came home from work, opened up her apartment door, saw him sitting on the couch eating ice cream, mistaken him for an intruder, and shot him. And then it came to light that she had actually entered his apartment, not her own. And so it went to trial, and she received 10 years for her actions. And at the sentencing hearing, Brant Jean had an opportunity to speak directly to her. Check this out.
If you truly are sorry, I know I can speak for myself. I forgive you. And I know if you go to God and ask him, he will forgive you. And I don't think anyone could say it. Again, I'm speaking for myself, not even behalf of my family. But I love you just like anyone else. And I'm not gonna say I hope you rot and die just like my brother did, but I personally want the best for you. And I wasn't gonna ever say this in front of my family or anyone, but I don't even want you to go to jail. I want the best for you. Because I know that's exactly what both of them would want you to do. And the best would be give your life to Christ. I'm not gonna say anything else. I think giving your life to Christ would be the best thing that both of them would want you to do. Again, I love you as a person. And I don't wish anything bad on you. I don't know if this is possible, but can I give her a hug, please? Please?
Yes.
Love your enemies. Incredible advice, but so hard to do because it's inconvenient, It's hard, and it's costly. But as we saw in that clip, when we take that truth, that principle, and apply it, we can see the benefits. Not only does it free us from the grip of bitterness and anger and hate, it opens up the door for God's love to touch others. If you view the rest of that clip, the whole courtroom turns into a hug fest. Even the judge comes out from behind the bench and gets in on it. It's just like this big, massive hug. Now, I know Jesus says that we should love our enemies. And I believe it to be true. But simply knowing and believing what Jesus teaches, the practical advice that he gives, just to believe and know that isn't enough. It's kind of like exercise. We know that exercise is good for us. We believe all the studies that are done on exercise. And so we can go out and we can buy all the books and the magazines, and we can download the latest app, subscribe to the latest fitness blogs. We can buy the best workout equipment, hire a personal trainer, buy a membership to the gym. But if we don't actually use any of that stuff, the only thing that happens is we get more knowledge. But it actually physically doesn't do us any good. 1.8 billion. That's a big number. That's the amount of money in dollars that Americans spend every year on gym memberships that are never used. $1.8 million on gym memberships that stay in a wallet. Never come out. Knowing and believing that exercise is good for us isn't enough. If we want to get healthier, fitter, stronger, faster, we actually have to do something like, I don't know, go to the gym, lift some weights, jump on the Peloton. And the same holds true when it comes to our relationship with God. I mean, reading the Bible, getting involved in a connection group, going to the city youth, taking one of the courses that, we offer on Sunday mornings. We haven't for a while since the pandemic, but they're in the works. Be ready. That is all great stuff. It's good stuff, and I would encourage you to take advantage of all those things, especially right now, the connection groups, because who couldn't use some of that right now? But all of those things, whatever they are, they won't do you any good if you don't actually put what you learn in those things into action. That's the only way you're going to experience transformation and healing and restoration in your life. When we actually practice the thing Jesus taught, when you and I move from just believing what he says is true, right, and best to actually living it out, that's when we'll see him at work in our lives in amazing ways. That's when we'll encounter the real living God. That's when we'll be able to pray through those situations, those actions of trying to forgive somebody that's hurt us and let go of that need for revenge that just wells up. It's when we'll be able to share our finances, our time, our resources in service of others, even though it's inconvenient or costly to us. It's when we'll be able to say, okay, God, I'm going to trust you in this. Even though this seems like the most ridiculous thing to do, I'm going to trust you. It's there that we're able to experience God in a greater way. And the result will be that we'll be able to trust him more than we currently do. And as we begin to trust him and know him, we know that he's with us all the time. So when the rain comes in torrents and the floodwaters rise and the winds beat against your house, your life, it won't collapse. You won't collapse because it's built on the rock. A dictionary defines follow as this: to go after someone in order to observe or monitor them. To act according to an instruction or precept. To act according to the lead or example of someone. To undertake or carry out a course of action or study. You can see that follow isn't passive. Following isn't passive. It's an action. And the whole goal of following Jesus is to become more and more like him. Imitate God, therefore, in everything you do, because you are his dear children. Live a life filled with love, following the example of Christ. You know, the main point in this whole talk this morning is this. It's summarized best by Jesus' half-brother, a man named James. And here's what he wrote in a letter that he wrote to some first-century Christians that's part of the Bible, in the New Testament. He writes this. He says, don't merely listen to the word and so deceive yourselves. Do what it says. Knowing and believing, yeah, it's a good thing, but it's not enough. Pastor and theologian, a man named Eugene Peterson, he did a paraphrase of the Bible. It's called The Message. What he did is he just took the Bible and he kind of updated it into today's language. And it's just a paraphrase. It's not a direct translation or anything like that. But he does such a beautiful job of putting verses into language that just resonate with us. And here's how he put these words that we've been looking at, these words of Jesus that we've been looking at this morning. Listen to this. At the end of this talk, Jesus said, "These words I speak to you are not incidental additions to your life, homeowner improvements to your standard of living. They are foundational words, words to build a life on. And if you worked these words into your life, you are like a smart carpenter who built his house on a solid rock. Rain poured down, the river flooded, a tornado hit, but nothing moved that house. It was fixed to the rock." Those are words to hang on to as we face all these different storms that are coming at us. And I don't know where you are when it comes to God, Jesus, church. I don't know if you're at the know and believe stage or you're moving to the following stage. You're actually starting to live out your new identity in Jesus. But wherever you find yourself, maybe you're still trying to figure out your higher power, which is awesome. Keep coming back. But wherever you find yourself, here's my prayer. That all of us together here at the meeting place would all get to know Jesus better than we currently do by not just hearing and agreeing with the things he taught and said, but to actually begin living them out. So that when the storms come, the ones we're experiencing now or the ones yet to come, we will be able to stand. I'm really honored and find it a true privilege to be on this journey with you as together we follow Jesus. I invite you to pray with me. God, I know myself, I have heard things that are so practical at a base level, and yet I just tend to just kind of rationalize whether they suit me or not. And if they don't, I just throw them out. And it's at my own peril. And so I pray for myself and anyone else that can identify with that for the courage to move from nodding and agreeing with what you say to actually living it out, making it part of who we are. Because at the end of the day, what will happen is people will see us responding in a way that just causes them to scratch their head. If we're facing a crisis, whether that be financial or relational or health, physical, that we can face it with hope that is rooted and founded on a rock, which is you. So give me the courage to do that. And give those listening today the courage to do that. So that together we can be that light, that city on a hill that you call us to be. Thank you for loving us so much that you give us this great beautiful roadmap on how to do life together and with you. And we pray this in your beautiful, awesome name. Amen.